Hello, this is Ingrid Auer. Today I have an interview with Michelle Karén. She is very well known as astrologer, shaman. She also works with yoga and she lives in Phoenix in Arizona. Hi Michelle, so nice to meet and talk to you.
Hi Ingrid, very nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
I would like to ask you, how would you explain shamanism? To a person who doesn't have really a big idea about this. What's shamanism? Why is shamanism important in our days? Isn't it something very ancient?
It's extremely ancient and it's very important for us today, more than ever. It's very difficult to explain shamanism because it's truly the psychotherapy of the indigenous people, let's put it that way. And it's using very simple things, a rattle, stones, regular stones, not gemstones, regular stones, feathers, bells, and a pendulum, but we don't even need a pendulum, we can just do muscle testing. And it's about really working with the invisible. The shaman is the one who works between worlds, who goes in the underworld, who goes in the upper world, and who retrieves information for a person and talks with the spirits, and really helps a person get rid of certain things. And it's more important than ever because today we have generational pieces, we have cultural pieces, we have pieces even from other planets, other entities. There is a lot going on in our lives that can come, through TV shows, that can come through just being in a crowded airplane with lots of people, being in a mall with a lot of people around us. If we are tired, if our immune system is compromised, we can get all sorts of attachments that on us that actually start to make us act in crazy ways. And for example, that's how you see kids who look okay and all of a sudden they take a gun and kill everybody. Well, they most probably had an entity sitting on them who's making them do that. Or a person gets very depressed and low and they start drinking, and that's an entity also that can come on them and start making them do those things. So it's so the role of the shaman is very multidimensional, because the shaman in ancient civilizations, and still today in the indigenous civilizations, and today as a modern shaman, is the priest, the healer, is also the one who helps people transition from this life to the afterlife, helps people in the afterlife to continue on their journey, cleanses people, helps them regain balance. We work a lot with the chakra system, and we work with the animals. I work in a very specific tradition, the Q'ero tradition, which is coming from the Inca lineage, or so they say, because I have a few doubts on that, but that's me. But they do claim themselves to be the descendants of the Incas in Peru, and I was initiated in Peru by the Q'ero master shamans. And this is a transmission. This is something where it's from a shaman to another, that the rights are being given, and there's a lot of different rights that are given. There's a lot of different initiations that a person will go through. You create a mesa, which is your power bundle, which has your 13 stones. And when you become a full mesa holder, you have this little sort of bundle that has those 13 stones that you have worked with to become a shaman. So it's not like you improvise yourself a shaman. You have to work on yourself very profoundly in order to become a shaman. And then nature will continue to assist you and teach you. You know, you will see animals are going to come in your path. Animals are going to tell you things. Like the other day, I was sitting in my office, and all of a sudden, this huge red-tailed hawk came outside, and he was like 20 centimeters from me on the other side of the window. And he stared at me, and he looked at me in the eye, and he had a message. He was delivering a message. He was telling me something very powerful that was relating to something I was going through in my life at that time. And he really came and talked to me. It was pretty incredible to see that.
It's really amazing to listen to you, because this is a total different world people are used to experience. So how did you get into shamanism for yourself? Because you grew up in Europe, lived a long time, or you are living in the USA. What's about this part of your life, or shamanism coming into your life? Was it overnight, or was it...
No, it wasn't overnight. It was in me. And it was in me from, I believe, many lifetimes as a shaman to begin with. And then I was born in Finland, and my father was Finnish, and we were always, every summer, we would spend the summers in the forests in Finland, camping by a lake and walking barefoot in the forest, and and swimming in the lakes and eating berries that we found and mushrooms that we found in the forest. So I was always brought up in this environment of connectedness with nature and love of nature and respect of nature. And then the Finns have the book, the Kalevala. The Kalevala is the ancient book, which is a shamanic book, actually. And so the Finns are shamans, natural shamans. And we are the bear people, you know, so we're also very connected to the bears and to wolves. And of course, the Sami people in, you know, the north of Scandinavia, are the north of the Sweden, Norway, and Finland, are shamans, complete shamans. So that, and I was always attracted to shaman books, and I was always intrigued by shamanism. And then when I first saw a picture of Machu Picchu, I was 16 years old, and I fell in a trance for 3 days, and I knew I would go back there one day. And I say back because even though I had not been in this lifetime, I knew I had lived there. It was something familiar. I knew Machu Picchu. And it took many, many years for me to get back there. And when I did, I was supposed to go there for a week. And it ended up being a 3-month journey because I got involved in a head-on train collision in the jungle. And the friend I was with had 3 broken ribs. So we ended up staying 3 months. And right before, the night before, I had first of all met Doña Maria, who was she's an Alta Messiah, and there are ranks in the Quero tradition. And the Queros, you don't go to Peru and meet the Queros. The Queros are not in the streets, they're not allowed there. They come and meet you. So they work in dream time, and we work a lot with dreams. We work a lot with journeying in the underworld, in the upper world, in the middle world. And so Doña Maria was there, and she met with me, and she was this little wrinkled old little lady with black eyes that shine like diamonds, and she has this incredible energy. And she was struck by lightning 3 times, and this is how the Queros are chosen to become shamans, is lightning strikes them, and when they survive, they are put in a cave, they are given specific foods, they are given specific rites and initiations, and that's how they become a shaman. And in 1954, Don Manuel Quispe had a dream, a vision, that if they didn't start to initiate little brother, little sister, then the world will go to oblivion.
Mhm.
And they were reclusive in the Andes, the mountains, the glaciers until 1954. And even the villagers suspected they existed and probably knew of them, but had not really seen them. But they kept their traditions alive for all this time. And then they started initiating a few people, and I was blessed to be initiated.
Wow.
Even though at the time I had no idea what the hell was going on and what this was all about. Because they don't speak very much, Akeros. It's a very oral tradition, but it's very much about doing. They do, they do healings without telling you exactly what they do. They do ceremonies without telling you really what this is all about. So then I went deeper and I started researching and studying in order to understand what I had received. And it's something that grows. It's a path of power, but it's something that keeps growing inside of you. It's something that you evolve with. And I love shamanism because it's energetic. And I always say it's Harry Potter school, because you're always going to encounter something you have never seen before. You're always going to have a surprise and something that, oh my gosh, how do I deal with this now, and the spirits are real, in the underworld. The guardian of the underworld is Huascar. The guardian of the middle world is Pachacamac. The guardian of the upper world is Pachacuti. And these are real beings. These are, when you go in the underworld, it's not like you are, it's not a sort of visualization. It's not like some of those journeys that people do in the New Age. It's real. There's a map. You should not get lost. There are specific portals. There are specific doorways. There are specific chambers. There are specific corridors. There are specific places you go to, for example, retrieve a soul. If somebody has gone through a major trauma and all of a sudden a part of their soul detaches and then they become fragmented and they are not able to quite relate or continue their life the way they did before. And the role of the shaman is to journey into the underworld and retrieve that part of the soul. Sometimes, we have ancestors who are sitting in one of our chambers. I did recently work on a lady, and her ex-husband, whom she had divorced and who had crossed over, was still sitting in her chamber of wounds. And I went down there and I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? And he said, well, I'm afraid to die. He was dead already. He had been dead for 10 years, but he was still sitting there. His spirit was still sitting there. And she was the only safe place he knew, even though he was dead and had not. So I had to sit down with him and say, look, now it's time to go, and it's not a scary thing, and I'll help you transition. And she was wondering why there were blocks in her life, and after that happened, there were no blocks anymore. So it's actually bizarre to even speak about shamanism because it feels like we're in Twilight Zone, but we're not. It's very real. It's very grounded. It's very, and these things actually exist. And like another person, she wasn't sure if she was pregnant, but when she was in her 20s, she had fallen in the stairs. And she had what looked like a miscarriage, but she didn't know if she was pregnant or not, but it looked like she was. Well, when I journeyed in the underworld for her, it turned out, yes, she was, and it was a little girl spirit. And that little girl spirit had been asking all these years for her to do a ceremony to honor her and let her go. So even though this had happened 40 years ago, it was still very actual. And once this lady was able to do that ceremony, honor the spirit of that little girl, give her a name, then everything shifted also for her. So these are very real things that people don't realize, and it's more important than ever to go and work with those elements, because our modern world is so disconnected, and we are so technological technologically involved with everything, with radio, television, internet, news, Wikipedia, this, that, and we're constantly challenged, and we don't take time to honor. Like, that's also another thing, you can buy a piece of land, but if you have not honored the ancestors, if you have not put them to rest, you could have all sorts of things dying in your garden, and you don't understand, what the hell am I doing? What's wrong? And put more chemicals and more this. But if you start to work with the spirits of the land, and maybe some need to be released, some need to have a burial, some need to have a specific ceremony done to them, and then everybody can rest in peace. It's very important. Like death, the death process is crazy. In many countries, it's completely not something we should talk about. Death is like, oh, we don't want to know. And then we take our old people and we put them in a home, and we don't want to deal with them. And then they start having Alzheimer and we can't even talk to them. It's very important to honor our ancestors. It's important to have an altar. It's important to have a place where they can live, where we talk to them. It's important that the process of dying is done in a conscious way, that there is a whole ritual, there's a whole way of helping a person transition, and that way they will start the afterlife in a much better way and conscious way, and they won't start becoming attached to the people that they left, So the role of a shaman is more important than ever, I think, and it's extremely essential to understand that this is not magic, even though it looks like magic, but it really isn't magic. It's really a conscious communication with the elements. Like, if we have issues, we blow them in the stone, and we release the stone into a river, we bury it, we put it somewhere, and we release it. We don't keep all that bottled up inside. So it's a path of power, but it's also the path of transparency. It's a path of becoming connected to our truth and very grounded. There's total grounding. We work with drums also. The drum is a magical tool of power, and the drum can be the boat that sees us through the rivers of the underworld, can be the shield that protects us from certain, maleficent energies or spirits. It's also the heartbeat of the mother, Pachamama, Mother Earth. So shamanism, yes, is very, very important today.
It's fascinating to listen to you, because when I listen to you, I can feel this energy, and only with your words you open up a new door for me. Yeah, this is for me like a new experience to have a little look of you into this world you're talking about. I have a last short question. You offer journeys to Bolivia and Peru. Would you like to tell a little bit about this?
Yes, I do that. I've been doing it every year. I don't know how long I'm going to continue doing it, because I tend to live moment to moment. But I'm doing a trip in November, the 5th to the 23rd of November. And we start in Lima, then we do the Nazca lines, we go to Marcahuasi, we go to Cusco, we do the whole Sacred Valley, and then we go to Lake Titicaca on the Peruvian and the Bolivian side. And this year we're going, every year I do a little bit of a different itinerary. And this year we are going to Pumapunku, Tiwanaku, which are the extraterrestrial cities in Bolivia. And I work with the Keros there, my teachers, and they do ceremonies for us. They give us rites, they give us initiations. And it's a magical trip. Every year, I've been going to Peru for like over a decade now. And every time I go, I see something I've never seen before. I go deeper and deeper. So it's a very mystical journey. It's a journey of transformation. It's a journey of getting to know ourselves better, connecting to nature. And throughout the trip, and I take only 22 people, it's a very small group. We do regressions, past life regressions, we do ceremonies, we get rites, we get initiated, and I make people aware also of the different architectures, because everybody thinks, oh, Machu Picchu, the Incas. Well, the Incas were only there for 100 years, you know, so there's no way they could have created all that. And if you start to really look very closely at the architecture, you will realize that there's not one architecture, but there's at least 5 different architectures. So there's actually 5 different civilizations that came and created Machu Picchu one after the other, and some were even more advanced than the Incas. The Incas were the last of the line, but there were others that were way more ancient, and I'm taking a guess that's probably 40,000-50,000 years old, that came before, and still their architecture and the power they put in the stones is still very, very visible. So it's a magical journey, and I always love doing it, and it's always my joy to introduce people to Peru for the first time, because it's not a place where you want to go on your own for the first time. You want to know with somebody who knows what they're doing and has connections there and has friends, and because it can be a pretty dangerous place on many levels. So, but it's a place that's so close to my heart. It's my soul country. I really love, and I love the Peruvians. They're such nice people, and they're so welcoming, and they have such humility and such, you can tell they're coming from a very ancient lineage. And all the information is on my site, michellekaren.com. There's all the information on the next trip.
Thank you so much. I could listen for hours and hours. It's fascinating to feel your energy. It's totally different when you speak about shamanism than you speak about astrology. Both is very interesting, but it's a totally different energy. Thank you, Michelle. I'm very happy to share our talk with many, many people over the world. And thank you for your time. And I'm looking forward to meeting you, hopefully this year or next year in the USA.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. Thank you. It was really a pleasure. Thank you.